The phone call came at 2:47 a.m., shattering the silence of Helena's on-call room at Metropolitan General Hospital. She'd been reviewing patient charts, her third consecutive night shift as the hospital's lead neurologist. The voice on the other end was frantic, unfamiliar. Someone from St. Augustine Medical Center across town. Dr. Brooks? You need to come immediately. Your husband, Dr. Cameron Brooks, there's been an accident. He's critical. They're prepping him for emergency surgery. Helena's blood turned to ice. Cameron was a cardiovascular surgeon, brilliant and careful. What kind of accident could have happened? Her hands shook as she grabbed her coat, her mind racing through possibilities. Car crash? Equipment malfunction? The caller had hung up before she could ask questions. She drove through empty streets, her heart hammering against her ribs. 20 minutes felt like hours. St. Augustine's emergency entrance glowed harsh and clinical in the pre-dawn darkness. Helena abandoned her car in the ambulance bay and ran inside, her credentials flashing as she pushed past the security desk. Dr. Cameron Brooks. Where is he? I'm his wife, Dr. Helena Brooks. The security guard checked his computer, confusion crossing his face. I don't have any record of emergency surgery. Helena's voice rose. They called me 30 minutes ago. Fourth floor, operating wing, he finally said, waving her through. Helena sprinted to the elevators, her mind fragmenting into 1,000 terrible scenarios. Cameron was only 42, healthy, athletic. They'd had dinner together yesterday before her shift, grilled salmon and roasted vegetables, sitting in their kitchen discussing their upcoming vacation to the Bahamas. He'd seemed perfectly fine, laughing about a difficult surgery he'd completed that morning. The fourth floor was quieter than she expected. No rushing medical staff, no chaos typical of a critical emergency. Helena's professional instincts began whispering warnings, but fear drove her forward. She pushed through the double doors into the surgical wing, looking for anyone who could tell her about Cameron. A young nurse emerged from a supply room, her eyes widening when she saw Helena. The nurse was in her mid-20s, with kind eyes and brown skin that reminded Helena of her own sister. Dr. Brooks? The nurse whispered urgently. Are you Helena Brooks? Yes. Where's my husband? Where's Cameron? The nurse grabbed Helena's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. She pulled Helena into an alcove, away from the main corridor. Her next words came out in a rushed, frightened whisper. You need to leave. Right now. This is a trap. Helena stared at her, not comprehending. What? What are you talking about? My husband is perfectly fine, the nurse interrupted. Dr. Brooks, I don't know what's happening, but something isn't right. I saw your husband walk in here 2 hours ago, laughing, not injured. I heard nurses talking about some kind of setup. I don't know the details, but you need to get out of here before. A voice echoed down the corridor. Cameron's voice. Not weak, not injured. Strong and clear, carrying the authoritative tone he used when teaching residents. Helena's confusion transformed into something sharper, colder. She gently removed the nurse's hand from her arm. Thank you, she whispered. What's your name? Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer. But I need to see this. Before Jennifer could protest further, Helena moved toward the voice. Not running now, but walking with deliberate purpose. She was a neurologist trained to observe, to analyze, to understand patterns others missed. The fear was transforming into something else. A clinical detachment that allowed her to see the inconsistencies. No trauma team, no blood, no urgency. The emergency call that had given her no details, no injury description. Nothing a real hospital would communicate to a spouse. She found the observation deck for operating room 3. Through the glass, she could see the surgical suite below, brightly lit and active. Cameron stood at the operating table, masked and gowned, his hands steady as he worked. He wasn't the patient. He was the surgeon. Next to him stood another woman, also in surgical attire. Dr. Simone Garrett. Helena recognized her from hospital functions. A cardiovascular surgeon who'd transferred to St. Augustine 6 months ago. Beautiful, ambitious, with dark hair and sharp features. Cameron had mentioned her once or twice, always professionally. Helena's hand found the intercom button on the observation panel. Someone had left it on, audio from the operating room filtered through clearly. They were closing up, the actual surgery nearly complete. The patient was stable, the anesthesiologist monitoring vitals. Another successful procedure, Simone said, her voice carrying an intimacy that made Helena's stomach clench. You're brilliant, Cameron. That technique you developed is revolutionary. We make a good team, Cameron replied. Helena could hear the smile in his voice, even behind the surgical mask. In surgery and out of it. Helena stood frozen, her hand on the glass. This was the trap. Not a medical emergency. Not a crisis. Something worse. Simone moved closer to Cameron, their bodies almost touching. In the sterile environment of the operating room, the gesture was unprofessional, inappropriate. Have you thought more about our timeline? Simone asked. Everything's on schedule, Cameron said, his attention on the final sutures. The psychiatrist I found will testify that Helena's been showing signs of instability for months. Paranoia, erratic behavior, stress from work. It'll be easy to convince a judge she's not competent to manage her own affairs. Helena's breath caught. Her fingers dug into the observation deck railing. And the inheritance? Simone pressed. Transfers in 2 weeks. Her grandmother's entire estate, properties, investments, everything. Once we have Helena declared unstable, I'll have power of attorney. I can transfer everything before she knows what's happening. Cameron straightened, examining his work. The research patents alone are worth millions. That stroke recovery treatment she's developing? That's our retirement fund. Our retirement fund, Simone repeated, satisfaction in her voice. I like the sound of that. And once the divorce goes through, she'll get nothing. Between the psych evaluation and the prenup, she'll be lucky to walk away with her medical license. Though I've been documenting concerns about her patient care too, just in case. Simone laughed, the sound crystalline and cruel. You're devious, Dr. Brooks. It's one of the things I love about you. They began removing their surgical gloves. The patient was being prepared for transfer to recovery. A routine operation, performed while they discussed destroying Helena's life with the casual tone of people planning a vacation. The phone call worked? Simone asked. Perfectly. Jennifer from night shift was supposed to intercept her, but Helena probably pushed right past. She's predictable that way, always rushing to help, always trying to save everyone. Cameron's voice carried contempt. That hero complex of hers is exhausting. Well, after tonight, she'll think she imagined the whole emergency call. Stress, paranoia, just like we've been documenting. Another piece of evidence for the incompetency hearing. Helena backed away from the window, her mind reeling but her training keeping her functional. Think, analyze, plan. She was a neurologist. She understood the human brain better than almost anyone. She understood manipulation, gaslighting, the systematic destruction of someone's credibility. And she understood that confronting Cameron now would be exactly what he expected. The emotional, unstable wife, making accusations she couldn't prove, playing directly into the narrative he'd been building. Jennifer found her in the corridor, concern etched on her young face. Dr. Brooks? Are you okay? Helena looked at the nurse who'd tried to warn her, this young woman who'd risked her job to help a stranger. Jennifer, did anyone ask you to call me tonight? To tell me about an emergency? Jennifer nodded slowly. Dr. Garrett approached me at the start of shift. She said you'd requested a call if your husband came in, something about surprising him. She gave me your number. Understanding dawned in Jennifer's eyes. There was no emergency, was there? No, Helena said softly. But there will be. She walked back to the observation deck, watching Cameron and Simone as they left the operating room together, their body language speaking volumes. 3 years, she thought. She'd been married to Cameron for 3 years. They'd met during his fellowship, her already established in her neurology practice. He'd pursued her relentlessly, charming and attentive. They'd married after a year of dating, a beautiful ceremony on a beach in California. She thought about the prenup he'd insisted on, claiming it was just practical. The joint accounts he'd slowly gained access to. The research files he'd shown such interest in. The way he'd encouraged her to pour money into their house, their investments, always structured so he could benefit. Helena had inherited her analytical mind from her grandmother, the formidable Dr. Eleanor Brooks, who'd been one of the first black female physicians in their city. Eleanor had built a medical empire, clinics, research facilities, real estate. She died 6 months ago, leaving everything to Helena with one condition. The full inheritance would transfer when Helena turned 35. In 2 weeks, Helena would turn 35. Cameron thought he was so clever. He'd probably been planning this from the moment they met. The charming surgeon sweeping the brilliant neurologist off her feet. Except he'd underestimated her. Helena pulled out her phone, but not to call Cameron. Instead, she opened her banking app, her investment accounts, her research file storage. Everything was still intact, but she could see the subtle attempts at access, the password reset requests, the security questions that had been answered incorrectly multiple times. He'd been trying to lock her out of her own life. She took photos through the observation window, Cameron and Simone in the corridor now, his arm around her waist. She started a voice recording, capturing the timestamp, the location, her own observations. Evidence. She would need mountains of evidence. Jennifer approached cautiously. Dr. Brooks, I finish my shift in an hour. If you need someone to talk to, someone who saw what happened tonight. Helena looked at the young nurse, seeing herself a decade ago, idealistic, believing in helping others, trusting that good intentions would be enough. Jennifer, do you know a good lawyer? My sister. She practices family law downtown. She's tough. I'll need her number. Helena managed a smile, though it felt like breaking glass. And Jennifer? Thank you. You probably just saved my life. I don't understand what's happening, Jennifer admitted. I didn't either until about 10 minutes ago. Helena glanced back at the observation window. Cameron and Simone had disappeared, probably heading to wherever they continued their affair. But I understand now. And understanding is power. Helena left St. Augustine Medical Center as the sun began rising over the city. She didn't go home. Instead, she drove to a coffee shop near the courthouse, somewhere Cameron would never think to look for her. She ordered black coffee and opened her laptop. Her grandmother had taught her many things. One of them was that the best defense is a devastating offense. Another was that revenge is a dish best served with legal documentation and witnesses. Cameron wanted to declare her incompetent? She'd show him exactly how competent she could be. Helena began making lists. Every asset, every account, every research file. Every colleague who could testify to her stability and brilliance. Every moment in the past 3 years when Cameron's behavior had seemed slightly off, slightly too convenient, slightly too controlling. Her phone buzzed. A text from Cameron. Morning beautiful. Surgery went great. Love you. Helena stared at the message, at the casual lie, the easy deception. She thought about responding, about pretending everything was normal. But that would come later. First, she needed to build her case. She typed a response. Glad to hear it. See you tonight. Then she called Jennifer's sister, the tough family lawyer. When the woman answered, Helena spoke clearly and calmly, her medical training keeping her voice steady even as her world fell apart. My name is Dr. Helena Brooks. My husband is trying to steal my inheritance and destroy my career. I need someone who fights dirty and wins clean. Are you interested? There was a pause, then a low chuckle. Dr. Brooks, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful attorney-client relationship. When can you come to my office? I'm free right now. Then let's get started. Helena ended the call and looked out at the city waking up around her. Somewhere out there, Cameron and Simone were celebrating their clever trap, their brilliant scheme. They thought they'd won. They had no idea the real fight hadn't even started yet. 3 days passed before Helena went home. She told Cameron she was covering emergency shifts, which wasn't entirely a lie. She had arranged to take extra hours, building an alibi of stability and dedication. But more importantly, she'd spent 72 hours with Jennifer's sister, attorney Rachel Montgomery, constructing a legal fortress. Rachel's office was small but efficient, located on the 3rd floor of a building near the courthouse. She was in her late 30s, with silver-streaked hair she wore in a severe bun and eyes that missed nothing. She'd listened to Helena's story without interruption, taking notes in precise handwriting. Your husband made several mistakes, Rachel had said after Helena finished. First, he underestimated you. Second, he's been too greedy, trying to grab everything at once instead of being patient. Third, and most important, he committed actual crimes. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy. We're not just talking divorce here. We're talking criminal charges. Now, sitting in Rachel's office on the 3rd day, Helena reviewed the preliminary investigation results that Rachel's private investigator had uncovered. Nathan Cross was a former FBI agent who specialized in financial crimes. His report was devastating. Cameron Brooks has been systematically stealing from you for 18 months, Nathan explained, spreading documents across Rachel's conference table. He started small, a few $100s here and there from joint accounts. Then he got bolder. Look at this. Nathan pointed to bank statements Helena had never seen. He opened credit cards in your name. 4 of them with a combined debt of $87,000. He's been making minimum payments to keep you from noticing. The bills go to a P.O. box he controls. Helena felt sick but kept her expression neutral. How is that possible? I would have seen the credit inquiries. He works at St. Augustine now, but he spent 2 years at Metropolitan General where you still work. He had access to the hospital's medical record system, which includes social security numbers. He also had your passwords, probably watched you enter them or used keylogger software on your home computer. Rachel added, "We've found evidence he's been forging your signature on documents. Investment transfers, research patent applications, even a modification to your grandmother's estate distribution that was filed 3 months ago." "What kind of modification?" Helena's voice was sharp. "He tried to have himself added as a co-beneficiary, claiming you'd requested it. The estate attorney rejected it because it contradicted your grandmother's explicit wishes, but Cameron convinced them to keep it quiet, said he wanted to surprise you." Rachel's expression was grim. "He's been planning this for a long time, Dr. Brooks." Nathan continued, "The relationship with Dr. Simone Garrett dates back 3 years, which means it started about 2 months before you and Cameron got married. I've tracked hotel receipts, restaurant charges, even a vacation they took to Miami when you thought he was at a medical conference. Helena had been at that conference. She'd presented research there. Cameron had claimed his schedule wouldn't allow him to attend, but he'd encouraged her to go, even paid for her flight. While she was presenting to colleagues, he'd been on a beach with his mistress." "There's more," Nathan said, and his tone made Helena's stomach drop further. "The gambling debts. Cameron owes approximately $200,000 to 3 different entities. 2 are offshore online casinos. The third is a local bookmaker with connections to organized crime." "How?" Helena whispered. "How did I not see any of this?" Rachel's voice was kind but firm. "Because he's a skilled manipulator and you're a trusting person. It's not a character flaw, Dr. Brooks. It's actually a strength in most circumstances. But people like Cameron exploit that trust. The money he's stolen from me, it went to gambling? Most of it. The rest funded his lifestyle with Simone. Nice dinners, expensive gifts, a condo he's renting downtown where they meet." Nathan pulled up photos on his tablet. "I've been surveilling them for 72 hours. They're not careful. They think they've gotten away with it." The photos showed Cameron and Simone entering a luxury apartment building, embracing in parking garages, dining at expensive restaurants. In one image, Simone wore a diamond bracelet Helena recognized. It had belonged to her grandmother. "That bracelet," Helena said quietly. "He told me it was stolen from our home 6 months ago. I filed a police report." Rachel made a note. "Add theft to the charges. The police report creates evidence he knew it was yours." "What about the psychiatrist Cameron mentioned? The one who's supposed to testify I'm unstable?" Nathan grimaced. "Dr. Richard Sterling. He lost his license in California 5 years ago for falsifying patient records. He practices in Nevada now with a new license, but his reputation is questionable. I'm guessing Cameron found him specifically because he's willing to lie for money. Can we prove that?" "I'm working on it. But the fact that Cameron chose someone with Sterling's history is suspicious enough. Combined with everything else, it establishes a pattern of fraud." Helena stood, pacing to the window. Outside, people went about their normal lives, unaware their entire existence could be a lie. She'd been one of them 72 hours ago. "What about my patients?" she asked suddenly. "Cameron said he'd been documenting concerns about my patient care." Rachel consulted her notes. "We've requested your personnel file from Metropolitan General through official channels. I also have a contact in hospital administration who's willing to speak confidentially. According to her, there have been 3 formal complaints filed against you in the past 6 months." Helena turned sharply. "What? I never heard about any complaints." "Because they were filed directly with the medical director, bypassing the normal review process. They were also anonymous, which is unusual. The complaints alleged you made medication errors, were distracted during procedures, showed poor judgment in treatment plans. None of that is true. My patient outcomes are excellent. I've never had a medication error in my entire career." "We know." The medical director apparently thought the complaints were baseless, which is why they never went further. But Cameron was building a paper trail, counting on the complaints existing even if they were dismissed. In a competency hearing, he could point to them as evidence of declining performance. Nathan added, "I checked the IP addresses where the complaints were submitted. 2 came from St. Augustine Medical Center computers during hours Cameron was on duty. The third came from your home computer, but on a day when hospital records show you were in surgery for 6 hours straight." "He used my computer to file a complaint about myself?" "Exactly. He's been methodical, I'll give him that. But he's also left a digital trail a mile wide." Rachel stood, gathering her files. "Dr. Brooks, here's what we're going to do. First, we're freezing all joint accounts today. I'm filing emergency motions with the court to protect your assets while we prepare the divorce petition. Second, we're documenting everything about your current mental state. You'll see a neutral psychiatrist this afternoon, someone with impeccable credentials who will evaluate you and provide a report showing you're completely competent. Third, we're gathering witnesses, colleagues, patients, anyone who can testify to your character and professional ability. What about going to the police? Helena asked. We will, but timing matters. If we report the fraud now, Cameron gets arrested, your case becomes public, and he might destroy evidence. If we wait until we have everything documented, we hit him with criminal charges and civil suits simultaneously. He won't know what happened until it's too late. How long? 2 weeks. Maybe less if Nathan works fast. Rachel met Helena's eyes. I know this is hard. I know you want justice now. But trust me, patience will give us a much stronger case. Helena nodded slowly. 2 weeks. The same timeline as her inheritance transfer. What do I do in the meantime? Act normal. Go home, be the loving wife. Don't let Cameron know anything has changed. I know that's asking a lot. I can do it, Helena interrupted. I'm a surgeon's wife. I've been acting like everything is fine for years without realizing it. A few more days won't matter. Good. Because if Cameron suspects you know, he might accelerate his timeline or disappear. We need him confident and careless. Nathan handed Helena a small device. This is a recording pen. Perfectly legal in this state as long as you're party to the conversation. If Cameron says anything incriminating, capture it. Also, I've installed monitoring software on your phone that will back up all your calls and texts to a secure cloud server. If Cameron tries to delete evidence, we'll still have copies. Helena took the pen, feeling its weight in her hand. Such a small thing to carry such power. What about Simone? Does she know about the gambling debts? Unclear. She knows about the inheritance. That's clear from the recordings you made at St. Augustine. But she might not know Cameron's in debt to dangerous people. That's leverage we can use if needed. How? Rachel smiled, and it wasn't kind. If Simone realizes Cameron's not the wealthy surgeon she thinks he is, if she learns he's desperately broke and was using her to steal from you, she might turn on him. Thieves falling out is always entertaining from a legal perspective. Helena returned to her car, the file folders Rachel had given her locked in her briefcase. She'd parked several blocks away, paranoid about Cameron somehow tracking her movements. The paranoia felt justified now. Her phone buzzed. A text from Cameron, dinner at home tonight? I'll cook. Helena stared at the message, imagining him in their kitchen, using her grandmother's copper cookware, serving food on plates she'd inherited, all while planning to steal everything from her. The urge to confront him was overwhelming. Instead, she typed, sounds perfect. I'll bring wine. She stopped at the grocery store and bought an expensive bottle of red, Cameron's favorite. She would play the role of devoted wife so convincingly that he'd never see the trap closing around him until it was too late. At home, their house looked exactly as she'd left it. Modern and spacious, decorated with her grandmother's antiques mixed with contemporary pieces. She'd paid for most of it, she realized now. Cameron had contributed minimally, always claiming his surgery schedule left him too busy to focus on domestic matters. He'd left her too busy too, she thought. Encouraging her to take extra shifts, to focus on her research, to pour herself into her career. Keeping her distracted while he systematically dismantled her life. Helena went upstairs to her office, a converted bedroom where she kept her research files and medical journals. Everything looked normal, but she knew better now. She checked her computer's access logs. Nathan had shown her how. Someone had attempted to log in 3 times in the past week, failing each time because she'd recently changed her passwords. She opened her research files. The stroke recovery treatment she'd been developing for 4 years was potentially revolutionary. A combination of targeted medication and neural stimulation that could restore function to damaged brain tissue. Early trials showed promise. Several pharmaceutical companies had expressed interest. Cameron wanted to steal that. Not just for money but to claim credit for her work. Helena made backup copies of everything, uploading files to multiple secure cloud services. Then she went through her file cabinets, finding documents she'd forgotten about. Her grandmother's original will. Life insurance policies. Investment statements. She photographed everything with her phone, the images automatically backing up to Nathan's secure server. In the back of her closet, she found her grandmother's jewelry box. Most of the valuable pieces were gone. The diamond bracelet Simone wore was just one of several missing items. Helena had assumed they were in a safe deposit box, which Cameron had insisted on getting for security. She called Rachel. "I need to access my safe deposit box. Today. I'll meet you at the bank in 30 minutes. The box was nearly empty. Her grandmother's engagement ring, worth at least $50,000, was gone. So were several gold coins, stock certificates, and bearer bonds. What remained were a few pieces of costume jewelry and documents Cameron had deemed worthless. Except they weren't worthless. Helena found her grandmother's journals, leather-bound books filled with Eleanor's precise handwriting. She'd kept detailed records of her life, her medical practice, her investments. The most recent journal ended 3 weeks before her death. Helena opened it, reading her grandmother's final entries. Eleanor had been sharp until the end, still managing her properties and investments from her hospital bed. And she'd had concerns about Cameron. "Helena seems happy, but I don't trust that husband of hers," Eleanor had written. "He asks too many questions about my estate. He's too interested in when Helena will inherit. I've instructed my attorney to ensure everything is structured so Cameron cannot access any of it. If Helena wants to share her wealth with him, that's her choice, but I won't make it easy for him to steal from her." Tears blurred Helena's vision. Her grandmother had known, had tried to protect her. There was more. "I've hidden my most valuable pieces with my attorney, Thomas Chandler. Helena doesn't know about them yet. The Brooklyn property deed, the pharmaceutical stock, the Rothschild painting. I want her to have them, but I want to be sure she's in a position to protect them first." Helena looked at Rachel. "My grandmother had an attorney named Thomas Chandler. I need to meet with him immediately." Thomas Chandler's office was downtown, in an old building that had housed lawyers for generations. He was in his 70s, with white hair and kind eyes that sharpened when Helena showed him her grandmother's journal. "I've been waiting for you, Dr. Brooks," he said. "Your grandmother made me promise not to contact you unless you came to me first. She said you'd figure it out when the time was right." "Figure what out?" "That your husband is a thief and a liar." Eleanor knew months before she died. She hired an investigator, discovered the affair, the financial manipulations, everything. She wanted to tell you, but she was afraid you wouldn't believe her, that you'd think her age made her paranoid. Helena felt a stab of grief. "I would have believed her." "Would you have? 6 months ago, happily married, thinking you'd found your perfect partner?" Thomas shook his head gently. "Eleanor thought it was better to protect you quietly and let you discover the truth yourself. She said you were brilliant, that you'd see the pattern eventually. She left me more than what's in the will?" "Much more. Follow me." Thomas led her to a vault in the basement of the building. Inside were items Helena had never seen, her grandmother's most precious possessions, hidden away from probate, protected from Cameron's schemes. The deed to the Brooklyn property is worth approximately $2 million. It's a commercial building with long-term tenants. The pharmaceutical stocks are in companies whose treatments your grandmother helped develop. They've appreciated significantly. And this, Thomas unveiled a painting, is genuine Rothschild, worth approximately $1 million. Helena stared at the treasures her grandmother had hidden for her. Why didn't she just put these in the will? Because wills are public documents. If Cameron knew about these assets, he'd find a way to claim them. This way they exist outside the estate, gifted to you through other legal mechanisms. He doesn't even know to look for them. How much total? Including what's in the will, you're looking at approximately $12 million. Your grandmother was a brilliant investor, Dr. Brooks. She turned her medical practice into an empire, and she wanted you to have it all, protected from men like your husband. Rachel was grinning. This changes everything. Cameron thinks he's stealing $8 million. He doesn't know about the other $4 million. More ammunition for the fraud charges. Helena touched the painting gently, thinking of her grandmother's careful hands, her strategic mind. Eleanor had fought battles her whole life, against racism, against sexism, against people who underestimated her. And in the end, she'd fought one more battle to protect her granddaughter. "Thank you, Thomas. What do I need to do to secure these assets?" "They're already yours. Eleanor transferred them years ago through various legal instruments. I'm simply the custodian until you claim them. Now that you have, I'll arrange for everything to be moved to secure storage under your control." Helena returned home as evening fell, the wine bottle in hand, her mind spinning with information. $12 million. Proof of Cameron's betrayal. Evidence of fraud. Criminal charges pending. 2 weeks, she reminded herself. Just 2 weeks of pretending and then she could destroy him. Cameron was in the kitchen when she arrived, wearing an apron, stirring something that smelled delicious. He looked up with a smile that had once made her heart race. Now it just looked predatory. "There's my beautiful wife," he said, crossing to kiss her. "How were your shifts?" "Exhausting," Helena said, allowing the kiss, fighting not to recoil. "But good. I think the research is really progressing." "That's wonderful," Cameron said, and his interest was genuine, because he thought he was going to steal it. "Tell me about it over dinner." They ate at the dining room table, expensive food on expensive plates, discussing her breakthrough research while Cameron mentally calculated its value. Helena played her role perfectly, the excited researcher, the loving wife, the woman who suspected nothing. After dinner, Cameron suggested they watch a movie. Helena agreed, curling up next to him on the couch, the recording pen in her pocket capturing every word. He held her close and she let him, thinking about evidence and justice and revenge. "I love you," Cameron said into her hair. "I love you too," Helena lied, and the pen recorded that too. That night, lying in bed next to her husband, Helena Brooks began planning the systematic destruction of the man who tried to destroy her. And she smiled in the darkness, thinking of her grandmother, thinking of justice, thinking of freedom. The trap he'd set for her was about to snap shut on him instead. The next morning, Helena woke to an empty bed. Cameron had already left for an early surgery, leaving a note on his pillow. "Didn't want to wake you. Coffee's ready. Love, C." She crumpled the note and dropped it in the trash. Then she retrieved it, smoothed it out, and photographed it for her records. Evidence of his deception, his casual lies, his performance of devotion. Helena checked her phone. The inheritance transfer was scheduled for next Wednesday, 9 days away. Her 35th birthday. Cameron knew the approximate timing but not the exact date. That small gap in his knowledge was going to be crucial. At the hospital, Helena moved through her rounds with practiced efficiency. She was examining stroke patients, reviewing treatment protocols, supervising residents. To everyone around her, she was the same dedicated neurologist she'd always been. But internally, she was cataloging everything: who could serve as character witnesses, which colleagues Cameron might have tried to influence, what documentation existed of her excellent patient care. Dr. Patricia Wong, the chief of neurology, stopped her in the hallway. "Helena, do you have a moment?" They stepped into Patricia's office, a cluttered space filled with medical journals and photos of Patricia's 3 children. Patricia was in her 50s, sharp-minded and no-nonsense. "I've been wanting to talk to you," Patricia said, closing the door. "There have been some unusual inquiries about you lately." Helena's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression calm. "What kind of inquiries?" "Someone, I don't know who, has been asking about your performance. Your patient outcomes, your judgment, your mental state. They've been subtle about it, asking other staff members casually. But it's been consistent enough that several people have mentioned it to me." "When did this start?" "About 4 months ago. I've been keeping notes because it seems suspicious." "Helena, is everything okay? Is someone targeting you?" Helena made a decision. Patricia was trustworthy, had always supported her, and might be crucial as a witness. "Can we speak confidentially?" "Of course." Helena gave her a carefully edited version of the situation. The discovery of Cameron's affair, evidence he was trying to damage her professionally, concerns about her upcoming inheritance. She didn't mention the criminal fraud yet. That would come later. Patricia's expression hardened as she listened. "That bastard. I knew I didn't like him. Too charming, too smooth." She pulled out a file. "I've been documenting the inquiries because they bothered me. The questions were always phrased to suggest you might be having problems. Has Dr. Brooks seemed stressed? Have you noticed any changes in her decision-making? It was clear someone was fishing for negative information. Did anyone provide any?" "No. Because there's nothing negative to say. Your performance has been exemplary. Your patient outcomes are among the best in the department. Your research is groundbreaking. Whoever's been asking questions hasn't gotten the answers they wanted." Patricia leaned forward. "What do you need from me?" "Documentation. Everything you have about my performance, my patient care, any commendations or awards. And if you're willing, I might need you to testify about the inquiries and about my professional competence." "Done. I'll have my assistant pull your complete file." "And Helena?" Patricia's voice softened. "I'm sorry you're going through this. But you're going to be fine. You're one of the strongest people I know." Helena left Patricia's office with a thick file of documentation. Performance reviews, patient satisfaction scores, research publications, letters of recommendation. Every page was proof of her competence, her stability, her excellence. She called Rachel from her car during lunch. "I have documentation from my department chief. And she'll testify if needed. Excellent. How are you holding up? I'm angry, Helena admitted. Every time I see Cameron, every time he touches me or says he loves me, I want to confront him. Tell him I know everything. Don't. You're doing great. Just a few more days. What if he moves faster than we expect? What if he tries something before my birthday? Nathan's monitoring his movements. If Cameron makes any unusual financial transactions or legal filings, we'll know immediately. But I think he'll wait until after your inheritance clears. He wants access to the full amount. That evening, Helena attended a medical ethics lecture at the hospital. She needed to maintain her normal routine, show her face, demonstrate stability. But as she entered the auditorium, she saw someone unexpected, Dr. Terrence Morgan. She hadn't seen Terrence in almost 2 years. He'd been a medical ethics investigator at Metropolitan General before taking a position with the state medical board. They'd worked together on several cases involving physician misconduct. He was tall, with dark brown skin and intense eyes that saw through deception. Dr. Brooks, he said, approaching her with a smile. I didn't know you attended these lectures. I try to keep current, Helena said. What brings you back to Metropolitan? I'm consulting on a case. Potential ethics violations by a physician at St. Augustine. His expression grew more serious. Actually, I was hoping to run into you. Can we talk after the lecture? Helena's mind raced. What case? What physician? But she simply nodded. Of course. The lecture was about informed consent and patient autonomy. Helena barely heard a word. When it ended, she and Terrence found a quiet corner in the hospital cafeteria, both with coffee neither intended to drink. I'm investigating Dr. Cameron Brooks, Terrence said without preamble. Your husband. Helena felt the world tilt. Why? Several complaints have been filed with the medical board over the past year. Allegations of inappropriate relationships with staff, conflicts of interest, potential insurance fraud. The board asked me to look into it. I didn't know, Helena said, which was true. She'd known about Cameron's crimes against her, but not about official investigations. Terrence studied her carefully. Helena, I'm going to be direct. Are you aware your husband has been having an affair with Dr. Simone Garrett? Yes. I found out recently. Are you aware they've been involved in questionable billing practices? Performing unnecessary procedures, upcoding services to insurance companies, splitting payments. Helena's hands tightened around her coffee cup. No. I didn't know about that. I have evidence suggesting it's been ongoing for at least a year. They've been careful but not careful enough. The pattern is clear once you know to look for it. Terrence leaned forward. Helena, I need to ask, have you noticed any changes in Cameron's behavior? Any unusual financial activity? Anything that might suggest he's under pressure? Helena made another decision. Terrence was investigating Cameron independently. His evidence could strengthen her case. And she trusted him. They'd worked together enough to know he was thorough and ethical. Can we speak off the record? She asked. This conversation isn't official. I'm asking as someone who respects you professionally and is concerned personally. Helena told him everything. The trap at St. Augustine, the overheard conversation, the fraud Nathan had uncovered, the gambling debts. She showed him some of the documentation Rachel had compiled. Terrence's expression grew darker with each revelation. Helena, this is worse than I thought. The medical board investigation is one thing, but this is criminal. Have you been to the police? Not yet. My attorney wants to wait until we have everything documented. Smart. But I can help. My investigation is independent of whatever you're planning legally. If I can prove Cameron's been committing insurance fraud, his medical license gets revoked regardless of what happens in divorce court. And anything I find is admissible in your proceedings. You do that. I do it anyway, it's my job. But knowing he's been targeting you specifically? That makes me want to be extra thorough. Terrence pulled out his phone. Give me your attorney's contact information. I'll coordinate with her. Between my investigation and your documentation, we can bury him. They talked for another hour, Terrence taking notes, asking clarifying questions, his investigator's mind connecting patterns. Finally he sat back, his expression grim. Cameron Brooks is going to lose everything, he said. His medical license, his freedom, his reputation. And he deserves every bit of it. I want him to face consequences, Helena said. Not just lose money or get divorced. I want him to answer for what he's done. He will. I promise you that. Terrence hesitated, then added, Helena, I'm sorry this happened to you. You deserve better. Something in his tone made her look at him more closely. They'd always had good professional chemistry, respected each other's minds. But now she saw something else in his expression, concern that went beyond collegial. "Terrence? I know this isn't the time," he said quickly. "You're dealing with enough. But I want you to know that when this is over, when you're ready, I'd like to take you to dinner. As more than colleagues." Helena was surprised to find herself touched rather than upset. "Ask me again when I'm divorced." "I will." He smiled. "In the meantime, let's destroy your husband's career." Helena went home that night with more allies, more evidence, and a growing sense that the trap was almost ready to spring. Cameron was home early watching television, drinking her expensive wine. "How was your day?" he asked, pulling her down next to him on the couch. "Productive," Helena said, thinking of Patricia's documentation and Terrence's investigation. "Very productive." Over the next week, Helena established a routine of gathering evidence while maintaining her facade. She had dinner with Cameron's parents, her soon-to-be ex-in-laws who had no idea their son was a criminal. She attended a hospital fundraiser where Cameron introduced her to colleagues as "my brilliant wife," while she smiled and memorized who saw them together, who could testify to his public displays of devotion. She met with Thomas Chandler again, signing documents to transfer her grandmother's hidden assets into new secure accounts. She met with the psychiatrist Rachel had arranged, Dr. Anthony Chin, who evaluated her extensively and wrote a report declaring her mentally sound, professionally competent, and showing no signs of the instability Cameron had alleged. She had lunch with Terrence, who showed her evidence of Cameron's insurance fraud, forged signatures on treatment plans, unnecessary procedures performed for profit, kickback arrangements with medical equipment suppliers. The paper trail was devastating. "I'm presenting this to the medical board next Monday," Terrence said. "They'll revoke his license immediately pending a full hearing. I wanted to time it to help your case." "Next Monday is the day after my inheritance clears," Helena said. "It's perfect." Nathan continued surveillance on Cameron and Simone. The photos became more damning, the two of them apartment hunting for a larger place, Simone wearing more of Helena's grandmother's jewelry, Cameron meeting with suspicious characters in parking lots who were almost certainly connected to his gambling debts. "He's desperate," Nathan reported. "The loan sharks are pressuring him. That's probably why he's accelerated his timeline. He needs that inheritance money to pay them off." Rachel filed the preliminary paperwork for divorce, but held off serving the papers. "We'll hit him with everything at once," she explained. "Divorce, restraining order, fraud charges, medical board investigation. He won't have time to react or hide assets." Helena's birthday arrived on Wednesday, a cool autumn day with brilliant blue skies. She went to work as usual, telling no one it was her birthday. At exactly 9 a.m., her phone buzzed with a notification from her bank. The inheritance had transferred. $12 million, protected in accounts Cameron couldn't access, secured by her grandmother's careful planning. Helena stood in her office at Metropolitan General, looking out over the city, feeling the weight of her grandmother's legacy settling on her shoulders. Eleanor had fought her whole life. Now it was Helena's turn. She texted Rachel, "It's done. The money transferred." Rachel's response was immediate, "Then let's end this. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. at St. Augustine Medical Center. Be ready." That night, Helena had a final dinner with Cameron. He'd made reservations at an expensive restaurant, claiming he wanted to celebrate her birthday. She suspected he wanted to celebrate what he thought was his impending windfall. "To my beautiful wife," Cameron toasted, raising his wine glass. "And to many more years together." Helena touched her glass to his, thinking, "You have no idea what's coming." "I have a surprise for you," Cameron said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small box, the kind that held jewelry. "Happy birthday, Helena." She opened it to find diamond earrings, expensive, beautiful, and probably purchased with money he'd stolen from her. Helena made herself smile, made herself thank him, made herself lean across the table to kiss him. But in her purse was the recording pen, capturing every word, every lie, every moment of his performance. And in her briefcase back home were documents that would end him. "I love you," Cameron said, and he almost sounded sincere. "I love you too," Helena lied one final time. Tomorrow the truth would come out. Tomorrow the trap would close. Tomorrow Cameron Brooks would discover that the woman he tried to destroy was actually the one who had destroyed him. Helena went to sleep that night next to her husband, counting down the hours until morning, until justice, until freedom. 8 hours until her revenge began. Helena woke at 5:30 a.m. before Cameron's alarm. She dressed carefully, a navy suit, professional and severe, her grandmother's pearl necklace, comfortable heels. She looked like what she was, a successful doctor preparing for battle. Cameron stirred as she finished her makeup. "You're up early," he mumbled. "Big day at the hospital," Helena said lightly. "I have that presentation to the board about my research funding." It wasn't entirely a lie. She did have something scheduled at St. Augustine, just not what Cameron thought. He reached for her, pulling her down for a kiss. "Good luck. You'll be brilliant. You always are." Helena extracted herself gently, fighting nausea. "I'll see you tonight. Actually, I have a late surgery. Don't wait up." Meeting Simone, Helena thought, celebrating what they believed was their impending victory. She drove to Rachel's office, where her attorney was already assembling the legal team. Nathan was there, along with 2 associates from Rachel's firm and a police detective named Sarah Chen. "Everything's ready," Rachel said, spreading documents across the conference table. "Detective Chen has reviewed the evidence of fraud and identity theft. She's prepared to arrest Cameron this morning if he doesn't cooperate fully with the investigation." "We usually don't announce arrests in advance," Detective Chen said, "but in this case, given the evidence and the fact that he's a flight risk with access to significant assets, we want to move quickly. If he contests anything, we're taking him into custody." "The medical board is meeting at 9 a.m., Terrence added, joining them from the doorway. "I'll be presenting my findings then. By noon, Cameron's license will be suspended at minimum, revoked if I have my way." Helena looked at the team assembled around her, all working to bring Cameron to justice. It was surreal, overwhelming, and deeply satisfying. "What's my role?" she asked. "You're going to confront him," Rachel said. "At the hospital, in front of witnesses. We'll have police present in case he becomes volatile. You'll serve him with divorce papers and a restraining order. He'll be informed of the criminal investigation and given a choice: cooperate fully, return all stolen property and face reduced charges, or fight and face the full weight of the legal system." "He'll fight," Helena predicted. "His ego won't let him accept defeat easily." "Probably," Rachel agreed. "But we have to offer the option. And either way, he loses." They arrived at St. Augustine Medical Center at 7:45 a.m. Helena had arranged through back channels for this meeting to take place in the hospital's administrative conference room. Present would be St. Augustine's chief of staff, their legal counsel, representatives from the medical board, and Detective Chen. Cameron had been summoned for what he believed was a routine medical board review. The hospital's attorney had called him, claiming there were questions about a recent surgery. He'd arrived confident, unsuspecting. Helena waited in an anteroom, her heart pounding but her mind clear. Through the door, she could hear Cameron's voice, irritated at being pulled from his schedule. "This is highly irregular," he was saying. "I have surgery scheduled." "Dr. Brooks, please sit down," the chief of staff said. "We have serious matters to discuss." Rachel looked at Helena. "Ready?" Helena nodded. She thought of her grandmother, of 3 years of lies, of the trap at this hospital that had awakened her to the truth. She thought of every woman who'd been manipulated, stolen from, betrayed by someone they trusted. "I'm ready." She walked into the conference room. Cameron's head snapped up, confusion crossing his face. "Helena? What are you doing here?" "I'm here to end our marriage," Helena said calmly, walking to the opposite side of the table. Rachel and Nathan flanked her. Detective Chen stood by the door. Cameron's confusion transformed to something sharper. "What is this?" "This is the truth coming out," Helena said. She opened a folder, pulling out documents. "I know about the affair with Dr. Garrett. I know about the money you've stolen from me. I know about the gambling debts, the identity theft, the forged signatures. I know about your plan to have me declared incompetent so you could steal my inheritance." The color drained from Cameron's face. Around the table, the hospital administrators sat frozen, watching the scene unfold. "Helena, I don't know what you think you know, but—" "I was here that night," Helena interrupted. "When you and Simone performed surgery while discussing how you destroy my life. I heard everything. And I've spent the past 2 weeks documenting every crime you've committed." She slid papers across the table: bank statements, credit card bills, photos of Cameron and Simone, recordings transcribed to text. The evidence spread out like an accusation. Cameron's hands shook as he picked up the documents. Helena watched his face as he realized the extent of what she knew, what she'd gathered, how completely he'd been caught. "I can explain," he started. "Don't," Rachel said sharply. "Dr. Brooks, I'm Rachel Montgomery, Dr. Helena Brooks' attorney. I'm here to inform you that you're being served with divorce papers and a restraining order. You're also under investigation for fraud, identity theft, forgery, and conspiracy. Detective Chin has a warrant for your financial records and is prepared to arrest you if you don't cooperate fully with this investigation. Detective Chin stepped forward. Dr. Brooks, you have the right to remain silent. Wait. Cameron's voice cracked. Helena, please. We can work this out. Whatever you think I did. I don't think, Cameron. I know. Helena's voice was ice. You married me to steal from me. You spent 3 years planning to destroy my career and my reputation so you could take my grandmother's money. You used my trust, my love, my dedication to my work against me. And you almost succeeded. The money, Cameron said desperately. You got the inheritance, didn't you? It transferred yesterday. Helena, I can pay back everything. We can forget this happened. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. You can't fix what you've broken. Helena leaned forward. You don't even know the extent of what you tried to steal. My grandmother knew about you, Cameron. She knew you were a thief. She protected her assets from you. That inheritance you wanted so badly? It's secured in accounts you can never touch. The jewelry you gave to Simone? Stolen property, and you're going to return every piece. The credit cards you opened in my name? Identity theft, and you're going to face charges. Terrence spoke up from his position along the wall. Dr. Cameron Brooks, I'm Dr. Terrence Morgan with the State Medical Board. I've been investigating allegations of insurance fraud, kickback schemes, and improper relationships with staff. Based on my findings, the board is suspending your medical license effective immediately pending a full hearing. Cameron stood abruptly, his chair clattering backward. You can't do this. I'm one of the top cardiac surgeons in the state. You're a criminal, Helena said quietly. And you're finished. The hospital's chief of staff cleared his throat. Dr. Brooks, Cameron, in light of these allegations, you're suspended from privileges at this hospital as well. Security will escort you from the building. Where's Simone? Cameron demanded, looking around wildly. Dr. Garrett needs to be here. She can explain. Dr. Garrett has been informed of the investigation, Terrence said. She's being interviewed separately. Based on preliminary evidence, she'll face her own medical board review for her role in the insurance fraud scheme. Cameron's gaze swung back to Helena, and she saw the moment his facade crumbled completely. The charming surgeon, the loving husband, the confident manipulator, all of it fell away, leaving something desperate and ugly. You bitch, he hissed. I gave you everything. I made you into somebody. Without me. Without you, I'm a brilliant neurologist with groundbreaking research and a $12 million inheritance, Helena interrupted. Without you, I'm free. Without you, I'm happy. You gave me nothing except a painful lesson about trusting the wrong person. Rachel placed a hand on Helena's arm, a gentle reminder not to engage further. Dr. Brooks, Cameron, you have 24 hours to return all stolen property, including jewelry and any assets you've hidden. You have 72 hours to provide full financial disclosure. If you cooperate, the prosecutor might consider reduced charges. If you obstruct or destroy evidence, you'll face the maximum penalty for every crime you've committed. Detective Chin added, You're not under arrest at this moment, but I recommend you obtain legal counsel immediately. The investigation is ongoing and charges are likely. Cameron looked around the room at the faces of people who'd once respected him. The chief of staff who'd recruited him. The legal counsel who'd defended him in the past. The medical board representative who'd praised his surgical skills. All of them now saw him for what he was. I want to speak to my wife alone, Cameron said. No, Helena said firmly. We have nothing to discuss privately. Everything you need to know is in those papers. Sign them, return what you've stolen, and get out of my life. Helena, please. Security, the chief of staff said quietly, and 2 guards appeared in the doorway. Cameron was escorted out, still protesting, still trying to maintain some shred of dignity. Helena watched him go, feeling nothing but relief. The man she thought she married had never existed. This desperate, angry criminal, this was who Cameron Brooks really was. When the door closed behind him, Helena's legs suddenly felt weak. Rachel guided her to a chair. You did great, her attorney said. That was perfect. It didn't feel perfect, Helena admitted. I feel sick. That's normal. You just confronted someone who betrayed you in the worst way. But Helena, you were strong. You didn't waver, didn't let him manipulate you. I'm proud of you. Terrence crouched next to her chair. Are you okay? Helena nodded, then shook her head, then laughed weakly. I don't know. Ask me tomorrow. The hospital administrators began filing out, offering Helena their apologies and support. The chief of staff paused. Dr. Brooks, I'm sorry this happened at our facility. If there's anything we can do. Find out how many people knew about the affair and said nothing, Helena said. Find out if anyone suspected Cameron's schemes and turned a blind eye. Hospital culture allows this kind of predatory behavior when good people stay silent. He nodded soberly. I'll order a full review. And Dr. Brooks? Your courage today will help other people who might be in similar situations. Thank you for speaking up. After the room cleared, it was just Helena, Rachel, Nathan, Terrence, and Detective Chin. They moved to a smaller office for privacy. What happens now? Helena asked. Detective Chin explained the investigation timeline. We'll execute search warrants on Cameron's office, his apartment with Dr. Garrett, and your marital home. You'll need to be present for the home search to identify your property.